What is up, YouTube fam? Robbie C here. Welcome back to another Disney Lorcana video. Today we are diving into watching some gameplay of what I know some are going to call the modern menace of the Lorcana format. But with set champs happening in really starting in just a few days, I can guarantee that you are probably going to see some of this deck at your local store. And I want to showcase sort of, if you've never played it before, someone piloting this deck, even when they're behind and seeing that, hey, when things aren't necessarily going their way, this deck still has a chance to get into it. Yeah, we're talking about green steel discard. I lovingly call the deck bye bye bye, and I think walking through play lines, it's one thing to sort of see the deck played on streams, but it's another to have you have the thought process behind the deck. And I'm not trying to say that I am the best green steel player to exist in the world, but I've played a lot of green steel and I feel very comfortable in this deck. And so with set champs happening this weekend, I can almost guarantee that most every single set champ is going to have some representation of this deck showing up. And I wanted to show you sort of my thought processes as a green steel player so that you can use them and sort of learn from them, either if you're playing the deck or if you decide that you want to play against the deck and dominate it. It does have a pretty big target on its back, and so these are some ways that people can sort of attack the deck. With all that being said, we have a Pixelborn Connect game going against a guy who we've actually showed content of me facing him before. His name was Pixelborn Toff, so shout out to the Melon Lord himself. Just a fantastic person. I always look forward to getting matched up against him. It's great conversations and great times. We're going to jump into the game. As we're diving in, we are jumping in. I've already sent some cards away, and I kept 3 and sent away 4. Usually the green steel deck can be a sort of high rolly deck, and when you don't know what your opponent is playing, most often it can be probably a pretty good strategy to mulligan looking for the Diablo shift. We're looking for the 1-drop Diablo into the 3-drop Devoted Herald, because if we can exert it, we start drawing cards, and the sooner we get that on the board, the answers to it exist starting on turn 3 for most everyone else. So if you can get it down on turn 2, it's definitely going to draw you some cards. Now we're on the draw, so we're going to be on the back foot a little bit from the get-go, and I end up mulliganing 4 away. Usually I would say an average green steel mulligan is usually in the 4 or 5 range, but we mulligan 4 away. We decide to keep 3 cards: the Muses, Diablo Devoted Herald, and we keep a Morph Space Goo. The reason we keep the Morph Space Goo is because we know that on turn 2 we're going to be able to play that, and worst case scenario we can shift it on turn 3. We know most often we're going to end up with a play on turn 3, and being able to shift as well as play something on turn 3 can swing the board really in our favor, even being on the draw. That's what we mulligan away, and we jump into the gameplay right here. Now I am an ink token user because I don't want to get disqualified or get a game loss basically for picking up my ink and thinking it's my hand. It's a common mistake a lot of players make, and if you're playing in a big tournament, that is technically grounds to get a game loss. My opponent's going to ink a Friends on the other side and play a Chernobog's Followers for his first turn, I believe. It's a Chernobog's or a Diablo the Glare. Kind of got me there. We draw into a big Tinkerbell. We don't necessarily need that right off the bat unless we're shifting the morph onto it. We have multiple copies, so we're going to ink it and pass. We didn't draw the Diablo or the Hidden Cove, which we only have 6 1-drops in the deck. So our odds usually, unless we mulligan pretty hard and get lucky, we miss it. It was a Diablo, not a Chernobog's Followers, and then they play the 2-drop Queen of Hearts that when she takes damage, we end up actually, she becomes like a 4/4. So looking at my hand, we knew that we were going to be playing this morph and shifting in. So we're going to ink away the Pete, and I realized that I didn't turn it over. That happened a couple times, but we spin 2, we get the morph on the board. And what's really cool about the morph is that inside of this deck, we have a lot of shift targets. And so because we have so many shift targets, it demands an immediate answer because you really don't know what's coming around on the other side. He's going to quest for 2, go up to 3, and he brawls the morph. What this tells me is that he should have, usually people aren't sitting on multiple copies of Brawl, and they're saving them to either stop the bird from coming out or they're saving them to kill Diablo and eliminate it. So I feel pretty comfortable sort of inking and playing a more powerful 3-drop on the board. I don't necessarily want to throw Diablo down just yet, because if he has to sit there for a turn waiting, that can often feel pretty bad, especially early on in the game because people are fearing it. So I'm going to ink a Sudden Chill away. I'm going to spend 3 to play an Ursula, Deceiver of All. This is a 3-drop, and whenever she sings a song, she has the opportunity to basically sing it twice, which can be super powerful. And I'm looking at his hand. He's inking, he's playing a lot of cards, and he is not really drawing any. And that's where discard can really shine, is by attacking your hand when you're spinning a lot of actions. Unfortunately, he tells me that he top decked into a brawl, so that Ursula, that 2/3, is going to go down. Unfortunate tempo for me that, he has 2 cards left in hand, so I could have double sang a sudden chill that I had and had the opportunity to get him down to basically 1 card. But yeah, he ended up getting it. So I'm going to get rid of another sudden chill here because he seems to be keeping his hand low and there's just not going to be a lot of value opportunities. Plus, I don't have a Prince John. So if I don't have Prince John, then discarding only does so much for me. Especially if I have those discard cards without the Prince John, it's the layering of those 2 that works really well. I decided to go for a Muses over playing Diablo for really 2 reasons. One, I was afraid of that Elsa on turn 5 coming down and sort of auto-exerting my Diablo. Like I said, there are a lot of answers, especially in red-purple, that exist for Diablo. And by going Muses, I know he can't brawl it because it has Ward. So I at least just need to get a character to stick. The more I can sort of get these Ward characters down, the better it feels. And so we are thinking about our options here. We're going to end up playing the Diablo because we've already seen 2 brawls. He has the Moana. He just inked an Elsa. He's playing a lot of answers to our character. And so quite often we just want to make sure that, hey, like Diablo should be safe here, right? We decide not to ink on this turn. Very important because I think that sometimes you get trapped into feeling like I have to ink every turn. Yeah, unfortunately, he just finds another brawl, and it's just every single card that we're trying to play. It's painful, guys. We seem to be in a massive hole here. He is just finding answer after answer. His top decks are really outperforming ours. So he only had 1 card left in hand, so we're going to go with the Hypnotize here. This makes him discard a card, and we draw a card. It pairs really well with Prince John because we end up drawing 2 cards off of it, but we get him down into complete top deck mode, and that is our goal. That's the only really road we have back into the game. Amethyst or purple has a ton of draw power potential, and every time we're trying to get something to stick, it's just not. So we need to make sure, since we have cards in hand and he does not, we need to make sure that we just have more resources available at this point. So we're going to end up having a Muses sing Let the Storm Rage On. What we do here is we choose to target the Moana. The reason we choose to target the Moana is because it's a 4/3. And it's the only thing on the other side of the board right now that can kill our Muses or eliminate them. But if we do the damage, then it's going to trade automatically with us. And so they only have a couple of outs here. A Fox that they could swing in and bounce something, or a Crab. Those are the 2 outs that really hurt us in this moment if they draw into it. And so what we end up doing is the Muses also, when you sing a song, you can bounce it. So we push one of their threats back. He does take the bait and swings the Moana in. So really here we have balanced the board out. He's going to play 2 of those. And I say we balanced the board. Well, he ends up playing a bunch of cards back to the board. And he ended up trading his Diablo into my Muses to get some card draw going. I thought this was fascinating, but he has no cards in hand. So discard suddenly becomes not that great. Now this play was one out of, I don't know, just desperation. But what we want here is we have a card in our hand. We don't talk about Bruno, which is a 5-cost song. So we want something to be able to sing that card, which is going to cause it to bounce back to the opponent's hand, as well as they discard a card at random. We don't want to spend our whole turn trying to play Bruno. And Cricky is one of our singers. Traditionally, Cricky you want to play when you have other characters on the board because that +3 strength to all of your existing characters can be really big for tempo swings. But looking at our hand, we have a 1-drop Diablo, a Pete, we have a Strength of the Raging Fire, we have a Sudden Chill, and then I couldn't see what that last card was. It's the Bruno. Yeah. So we have the opportunity to remove quite a few cards here. And so we're kind of contemplating what are the play lines? What do we want to do? We're on 5 ink. They've got 13 lore. We've got to address the genie. This genie is an evasive character and they're already at 13 lore compared to our 0. So we know, hey, they can run away with this if we don't start answering it. We're not as afraid of the 1-drop questers and things like that because we probably can end up with some answers to that. But what we're going to end up doing here, I think we are trying to decide we just need to get some bodies on the board. and we need to start contesting and getting board control. We have more resources than them. Eventually, we're going to find some draw. So we end up playing the Pete. So there's no actions on this next turn, which means they can't do a Friends on the other side to draw. They can't play any more brawls to get rid of any of our characters. Not that either of these characters could be brawled, but also it just, no actions really limits them. And so we want to do that. But we're going to play, we don't talk about Bruno. We're going to send the genie back to hand. And I believe I made the remark of, let's see if the game's on our side today, because we have a 50% chance of just discarding this genie and eliminating the threat entirely. So what do we end up going for? We pick one of those cards because they have to discard a card at random. And we don't hit the genie, and we do hit one of their locations, which is not bad because we don't have a lot of location answers inside of this deck, especially with the Cricky already being down. That's our biggest location answer. So we have to use the other 2 ink to play Sudden Chill to just target that last card. They're once again in top deck mode, but we only have 2 cards in hand, a Strength of the Raging Fire as well as a Diablo. So we have removal, but we don't really have a lot of bodies, and these Queen of Hearts have 4 willpower. So they're going to be tough to deal with. He plays the Friends, but another pro tip, if you're playing Pete, whenever you play him upside down, because it's just a reminder to everyone that they're in Pete lock, so that we have a situation like this where he tries to play the Friends on the other side, but he can't because the Pete is in control. Something that you can definitely look into doing. So he's going to swing and do 1 damage into the Cricky, and the reason he's trying to do that is because that buffs the Queen of Hearts. Now she has 4 strength, so that Queen of Hearts can trade into any of the other characters in the coming turns, which is huge. Now we get a phenomenal top deck here, and this is a card that I think a lot of people, and Green Steel especially, are trying to make sure that they keep, and that is the Tinkerbell Giant Fairy. The reason this is big is because when she enters the board, she does 1 damage to all other characters, like all of your opponent's characters. So that 1 damage taps and wipes the Churnbox followers, which means it's not going to get to draw. It takes out the Queen of Hearts, which is really big, and that allows us to trade the Pete in, and we're going to go quest for 3. The other beautiful part about Cricky is that he does quest for 3, so we can climb back into the lore game really fast. They have 2 cards in hand, as well as no characters on board, and we've got 2 big bodies, one of them being the Tinkerbell. We're going to be able to swing and do a ton of damage here, which is really good. Now he inks the Elsa. I do think that's a little bit of a misplay because she's evasive, and with the evasive side, I bet that we have a lot harder time answering it, but he decides to go with the Crab, and I think the reason for the Crab is so that hopefully he can make some bigger trades with it down the line. Now he has 1 card in hand, and what we're going to do, we drew into a Let the Storm Rage On, so we do 2 damage so we can draw a card. And we actually chain into another Let the Storm Rage On, so we can get rid of that. We replenish, and we're cooking. Now here, I will admit, there's a misplay. In terms of, I'm adding up the lore, and I click the button. Neither of us seem to notice it, so I should be at 8 lore here, and it doesn't come into play in the future, but I want to acknowledge that. It is a misplay. Neither of us noticed that, I accidentally clicked too many times, so I should be at 8 lore. Once again, my apologies. We would have caught this in a game, but we were just moving and grooving, moving too fast. So not trying to cheat. It just happens. But like I said, you're going to see that it doesn't necessarily come into play. So I have 3. I draw into Hypnotize so I can get rid of this last card that they have in their hand. I really am trying to make sure that they stay in no cards. And there's 2 reasons for this. They have 6 ink right now. If they get to 7 ink, then what they draw becomes a lot more relevant. So we quest up, we go for 3, and if they're at 7 ink, well, congratulations. That means that a B prep is live. So he plays the Crab here, trying to once again get bodies on the board. And so we stand everything up. We have 2 cards in hand, discard not being effective here. But we have that final strength. We're going to quest all the way up to 19, but at 10 or 18, technically it's 17, but you can see. And then his top deck, he draws into the B prep, draws into the B prep, and we had an Ursula and a Sudden Chill. So we still had discard hanging out in our hand. So what's fascinating about this, I think that you just end up with the ability to fight back inside of this. What I think is really cool, and one of my favorite parts about this deck, is that often when you're playing, it's like solving a puzzle the entire time. I very much appreciate the lines in this. There are moments that you just feel dead in the water for sure because your uninkables hit you, but because of the amount of tools you have with the steel removal and the control you get over discarding, I would say two of the biggest weaknesses of this deck are you die to top decks. The more you play this, you're going to see that your opponent top decks into a whole new world, or they top deck into a sweeper like Be Prepared or Sisu Empowered Sibling. These are powerful cards that can just completely flip the game on its side. I'm fine losing to top decks. That's the reality of the game when you're playing discard. But I do really love just the layers of, he was drawing exactly what he needed, right? He drew into 3 different brawls to answer, and getting rid of all of those cards really kept me from running away with the game super fast. And yet we were able to answer and sort of out attrition it. So I would say 2 of the biggest takeaways when you're playing the game that you can take whether you play green steel or not is often you can get trapped into the inking every turn. On turn 5, we didn't ink because we wanted to hold on to the cards. We were already not in sort of a tempo advantageous place. We decided to hold on to the card because we knew, okay, we don't necessarily have to be, what does 6 ink do for us that 5 ink doesn't? That's a question you have to be asking yourself as you see those play lines. So for me, a lot of times 6 ink means that I'm going to be able to play one of my 3-cost actions as well as a 3-cost character, or double play those 3-cost characters. It's the most represented thing in my deck. But I knew that where we were at, 2 3-cost cards being played wasn't necessarily going to be there, and I didn't have them in hand either to play them. Until you start seeing those cards pop up, why do you have to be there if I'm just going to dump my hand and then still have no cards in hand either? I had the card advantage because I had more cards in my hand, and so how do I leverage that is something that you can be looking at. We definitely mess up on the lore there, but as you can see, when we get to the end of the game, we had more than enough to cross the finish line. I mean, even with that one misplay of lore, we would have been at 17 on this turn, and Cricky himself would have pushed us over to 20, not to mention the Tinkerbell and the Diablo doing the same thing. So that's green steel. Not necessarily like we didn't draw into the nuts or like the God Hand to start the thing off, but like I said, I love this deck and how it has the ability to fight back at all times. What do you think heading into Set Champs season? For those of you who are going to play, what decks are you looking forward to playing? What decks are you looking forward to not hopefully seeing at your Set Champs? And if commentary like this was helpful, let me know. We'd love to make more videos like this. We try to stream as often as we can. We have a little one at home, so we aren't streaming as much as we have been in the past. This list, I'll put the link to this list down below, but I'll also put my current list in the link or in the description as well that I'm running and I'm looking at, because this current iteration is bye. I always do set V and then whatever version I'm on. So this is 7v7 and we're currently on 7v10. And that way you guys can look at it as well if you want to see sort of what we're playing and what we're looking at. So thank you so much for watching. Hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Please make fantastic for someone else too. But for now, we're going to leave you with the questing.